Well, good morning, social media friends. Happy Tuesday again to you all. Dr. Jeff Riggenbach here with you on another Tips Tuesday to give you yet another tip for dealing with the difficult people in your life. This free social media series comes to you based upon the content of my new book, Disarming High Conflict Personalities, dealing with the 8 most difficult people in your life before they drive you nuts. And if you haven't gotten your cheat sheet, by the way, that overviews the 8 different types and some strategies for dealing with each of those, you can click on that link below in the description and grab that. It'll also get you on the email list to get additional content related to the book and training programs. Today's tip has to do with knowing you. Okay, so we start by saying know you. Part of the sort of secret sauce of this content really has to do with personality-based communication. Okay, so strategically communicating to people differently based upon a knowledge of a knowledge and understanding of our personalities and a knowledge and understanding of the difficult person in our lives, personality, and learning specifically to adapt how we talk so that we know, as John Maxwell says, our message will hit the mark. Okay, to learn to talk so we know they will listen. And in order to be able to adapt our language, we have to know what we're adapting from. Okay, so before we get into knowing them and knowing how to adapt to talk so they will hear, we have to know what we're adapting from. And so to do that, we have to know us. So this is the tip for today, is to know you first. How do we do that? Well, the easiest way to do that is to take your own personal DISC assessment. If you haven't done one of those, I'd invite you to click the link below in the description. I've got a link to my assessment there. Or if you haven't really taken one in the past year, it's generally a good idea to take another one. So if you want to take that full assessment, click that link below. I have anybody I work with, by the way, take that assessment prior to us working together, whether it's individual coaching, whether I'm working with your team or your company or coming in and working with your organization. Everybody takes a DISC assessment up front. So whether this is part of ongoing training or coaching or not, I think it's oftentimes a good idea just to have a current assessment of our own. If you've ever been to one of my live trainings or virtuals, you have seen me start this explanation off with a little exercise like this. And any of you fellow DISCers out there are going to know the 2 primary questions that we're going to ask to kick this off with. And so the first question I always ask is, if you had to say one or the other, okay, do you consider yourself more outgoing or do you consider yourself more reserved? And for some people, it's more extreme. For some people, it's pretty close. But if you had to choose, Dr. Romo always says you can change your mind. But if you had to choose one or the other, even if it's just by a little bit, would you say that you're a little more outgoing or a little more reserved? And if you're in the conference room, maybe you want to just close your eyes and do a little exercise here. Pretend that we're in one of those big ballrooms in the hotel conference room where we usually do these kinds of trainings. And so if you want to just picture yourself, and if you said, yes, I'm a little more in that outgoing category, then I'm going to ask you to go to the north end of the room. So just sort of picture yourself, if that's you in that more outgoing category, move into that north end of the room. And then for those of you that said, I'm probably a little more reserved, you're going to come down to the south end of the room. So we got that pictured in our mind. Okay, so everybody's either at the top, at the north end of the room, or we're down here at the south end of the room. And then my fellow DISCers know the second question that we're going to ask, which is simply this. If you had to choose one or the other, maybe it's 51-49, but if you had to choose, do you view yourself as a little bit more task-oriented or a little bit more people-oriented? And, if you say you're one, it doesn't mean you don't like the other. You can be task-oriented and still like people. You can be people-oriented, but still think it's important to complete things, get things done. But if you had to choose, would you say you're primarily task or people? And for those of you that said task, if you got your eyes closed again and picturing our big ballroom we usually do these trainings in, I'm going to have you go to the left or to the west side of the room. And then for those of you that said, no, I think I'm probably primarily people, we're going to have you go to the right. We're going to have you go to the east side of the ballroom. And so I've heard my trainers say versions of, if you don't know what it is, if you're one of those people that are laying there at bed at night, you've had a good day. You're probably having thoughts run through your head like, boy, I got a lot accomplished today. We really got a lot done. Finally got that big project taken care of. Today was a good day. But if you're laying there in bed at night and you've had a good day, you may be having thoughts along the lines of, oh, well, gee, it sure was good to see Susie again. I hadn't seen her in forever. We had a great talk. It was a great day. Okay, so what are you thinking about when you lay in bed at night? What is most important to you? It's not that the other's not important, but if you had to pick. And so if you've got that image in your mind of our training room, our ballroom, we now have people in 4 different quadrants, right? Okay, so if you identified yourself as primarily outgoing and primarily task-oriented, you're going to be in that upper left hand corner, or sort of the northeast corner, if you will. And you're going to fall in that quadrant that we would label the D. So D is your primary trait if you're primarily outgoing and task-oriented. For those of you that said, I am primary outgoing, but I'm also primarily people-oriented, so you'd fall in that upper right-hand quadrant of our DISC model. You're going to be an I. Okay, you're going to fall in that I category. Those of you that said I'm primarily outgoing and, that said I'm primarily people-oriented and I'm primarily reserved, well, you're going to be in the lower right-hand quadrant, and you're going to be an S. The S is going to be your primary trait when you take that formal assessment. And finally, for those of you that said I am primarily task-oriented and I'm primarily reserved, okay, you're going to fall in that lower left quadrant, and you're going to be the C. C is going to be your primary trait in that DISC assessment that you take. So there's our quick overview and how we sort of divide the room in the live trainings to kick this off, to just give you sort of a top of the waves glimpse. There's actually over 60 different plotting points, so we could get into quite a bit of detail with this, and we do sometimes, depending upon the nature of the work that we're doing. But this just sort of gives you the top of the waves. D is your primary trait, a D, an I, an S, or a C. Again, if you haven't taken an assessment in the last year and you'd like to do that, click that link below. I'd love to have you take mine. Also, if you'd like to do some work with me based upon that, I have a one-time, just for the next 3 weeks here. For those that sign up in the next 3 weeks, I have a significantly discounted rate if you want to do an individual session with me where I go over the results and talk about how you can best use your personality traits to your advantage in communicating with people and specifically dealing with the difficult people in your life. So that is today's tip on Tips Tuesday. Know you. Hope everybody has a great week, and I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. Bye for now.